Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast as always. And we are looking at NBA playoff basketball here for Thursday today, but we only have one game, those Nuggets and the Timberwolves, as the Timberwolves look to stave off elimination here in Game 6 back at home. We'll be taking a look at best bets from that game in this video. Even have some look ahead stuff. Since we only have one game, we can take a little bit of a look ahead at maybe some futures bets that are live right now and take advantage of those as well. Also have a player props video up with props up for this game. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along throughout the rest of this postseason with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything that we have up on the site right now, including a look at some of these futures and the way that we break down series once we have them. So definitely a lot of helpful stuff on the site if you need it while you're betting these NBA bets this postseason. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first pick for this Nuggets and Wolves game.
Yeah, it's the Nuggets to win, and the early line was plus 120 or better. I think when I hit it, now we're about plus 110 at most spots. I think you could still take an alternate spread, but not more than like minus 2.5, minus 3.5 to get some juice there. But I mean, it's just like you have nothing to throw at the Joker at this point. Like you have nothing to threaten me with, is how he's feeling. Like he's just like literally clowning on Rudy Gobert. You can put Cat on him. Cat will immediately get in foul trouble at this point because the Joker has just figured you out. Jamal Murray being questionable is a concern. It seems like he's going to play through that. But I mean, you could argue that Mike Conley being doubtful is a bigger deal for this. I mean, certainly for the Wolves offense. I mean, it's just was a disaster because the Nuggets, as soon as they had that news, they were like, all right, we're just going to force the ball out of Ant's hands and see if you have some secondary playmakers. And they do not. JDM and Cat were both like minus 20 in terms of like getting a couple buckets down, but like they are not playmakers. They're not going to initiate the offense very well. And even in game 4, other than Ant and Conley, the Wolves shot 40% in total, 3 for 13 from 3. They, in those first 2 in Minnesota, had a 95 offensive rating in the first half and eventually came alive. But like these slow starts are a real problem. I mean, their path to victory here is to come out hot, right? Get that home crowd really roaring, and then also have a very excellent third quarter, which has been the issue against the Nuggets all playoffs. They're the best third quarter team in these playoffs. And I would consider a little sprinkle on Wolves halftime, Nuggets full time, which is plus 550. Kind of like Lakers them, if you will use that as a verb, to just say like they're going to get down a little bit early here. And then once Joker has more information, like he's just going to dice you up in that second half. They're going to go to that 2-man game if Jamal's out there, of course. But I mean, that 2-man game was just lethal in Minnesota, quieting the crowd, getting something good every time down the floor, 1.2 points per possession to be specific. Joker actually shooting better against Rudy than against others because Rudy's lying in help. But like, I mean, this is going to be mostly a Joker appreciation podcast because coming off maybe the best Game 5 performance in the modern NBA, I guess. You know, we don't have to go back too far, but a 169 offensive rating in his last 3 now. He's shooting 64% on twos, creating 24.5 points off assists. And Minnesota's going to throw more at him, and he's just going to get them in rotation. Like, I trust these Nuggets to attack closeouts and score in those situations more than I trust the Wolves supporting cast for sure. I mean, they're 8-1 their last 9 road playoff games. Obviously, have more experience in this situation. And if you take Ant out of this, like this Wolves offense is just kind of a disaster. So I don't think they can hang with the Nuggets for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would argue I would argue that Mike Conley might actually be more important to this offense than is Jamal Murray right now to this Denver Nuggets offense. And it's in part because of the matchup. It's in part because other guys have stepped up on offense and in a way that I think the threat of Jamal is in and of itself helpful, and you need that to open up guys like Christian Brown, and even Arjax. Well, with the Arjax, it'll be him doing him without Jamal. He'll be the replacement if Jamal needs to sort of lose a few minutes because of health in this game and not play, say, 36, but play like 32 or 30, then Reggie will be out there. He's been really good when called upon in this series, really efficient with very few minutes as he's lost some time to Christian Brown. But that would be point number one. Point number two, you can actually go back as far as you want. Nobody's ever had 40 points, 13 boards, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. And that was his line in this last game. 0 turnovers. And shout out KCP for getting the ball back from Jokic at the end of a shot clock violation at the end of the game. He ran over to him and he was like, give me the ball, give me the ball. You have no turnovers. We can't sully this. This is just one of the best performances we've ever seen in the playoffs or in any game, because it's not just the playoffs that no one's had that stat line. It's ever in the NBA. So yeah, he's doing heroic stuff. I expect more heroic stuff, as I think we all do. Now he's back on the road. But there is something to the idea that, like, if Jamal really is as unhealthy as he appears to still be, then 19 and a half points is too much for Jamal. And 2, just expect Jokic to keep doing Jokic stuff. Like, I've never seen anybody look like they're not trying to that extent and just wet everything that they put up. So, like you said, Joker appreciation pod here and show. But I will just continue to roll it along, because with just one game, I don't necessarily need to force a first quarter bet and a third quarter bet and whatever. We can say we both like the Nuggets to win this one. If Conley's not in, I really like the Nuggets to win this one. If Conley's in, it's a little bit more of a toss-up, because I do think Ant is going to do heroic stuff this game as well. After he told a ball boy, see you in game 7 when he was in Denver walking off the court, game 6 there, or game 5 rather. But either way, I'm going to take Nikola in the next round, because you can't get a semifinal MVP, but you can get a Western Conference Finals MVP. And so we're going to give that to Nikola Jokic at -110 on FanDuel. And I don't, like, as soon as they win the series, this is what, like -155, something along those lines. So as soon as they're like clinching this thing, then yeah, that number is going to go down big time, depending on who they play. Obviously, if like Luka is in the series, it's going to be between he and Shai, depending on which team moves along. I don't know why you'd feel comfortable about the Thunder. Like, the Dallas Mavs are in control of that series. But either way, -110 for him to win the MVP, and RIP to just, if it's Chet Holmgren, God bless you, sir. Like, we're going to see some Jalen Williams. We're going to see Jay Will in that series at that point. Have to. I don't think that does much for you to increase your favoritism for OKC winning. But either way, I think what's interesting is once Gafford got there, they were a lot better, right? Like, versus Dallas this season, he's played Gafford twice, 19 points per game, 11 boards, and 8 assists in 34 minutes against that team. Not a bad line for anybody. But the 19 points, I do think that'll go up in the playoffs as it tends to for Joker. But 19 was still under his season average when he played against this team, against Dallas specifically. So I do think they'd rather have OKC and just gobble up Chet. 24 points per game and 10 boards, 8 assists in 33 minutes per game against OKC. So actually somewhat similar numbers, but you can see it's like pretty easy for him to score against OKC. Got 5 more points against them than against Dallas. Not apples to apples here. It's a different game. It's different times. So it's not like you can just bank on that. I don't think either matchup is going to be particularly good. Lively, I don't know how you give Lively almost any minutes in that series, and he's been incredible in the semifinals of their series against the Thunder. But I don't know how you get him on the floor there. And then for Joker, just to like exacerbate and just, or at least like get really enhance the point here, that he's going to be the MVP for his team. When he does take over games, they're better, plain and simple. In their wins in the playoffs, he's got 3.5 more points and 3.8 more shots per game as well. So they do want him to be aggressive. There's a correlation at the very least between him taking more shots, being aggressive on offense, and them winning. 1 more board, half more assists, but like just a little bit more involved. And I mean, honestly, the first 2 games of this series, he just didn't really look involved, to be honest with you. And there was turnovers galore. It was kind of ugly. It was just a wake-up call, to be honest. They were still sleepwalking from that Lakers series. So I just see him moving forward, really taking on that role. And if Jamal continues to be hurt, there is no secondary MVP option. Like, Michael Porter Jr. would have to hit like 6 threes a game to be considered for it. So there's no one else who's going to come close to it. Like I said, Jamal would be there if he was in and full last year Jamal, taking 24 shots, getting 16 potential assists, maybe pulling down 5 rebounds. Then you're talking about maybe Jamal does Jamal stuff, but he's just, I don't see him able to do that until like, I guess maybe the finals, depending on how healthy he's able to get, but he might just be nicked up for this whole playoffs.
Yeah, no, I thought you were going to go Aaron Gordon, who has been compared to Andre Iguodala, who does have a Finals MVP. And I mean, I'm going to go one step further in this, and I've already bet Jokic Finals MVP in Denver champion, which was plus 290 when I got it, and champion is just a little bit lower at like plus 255 now. It's the same thing. Like, maybe Aaron Gordon, if he locks up Tatum and is scoring and is assisting, but like, I don't know how you see a world where the Nuggets win and it's not Jokic here.
Yeah.
You outlined why they should be able to handle either Dallas or OKC, and Jokic should be the one leading that charge. So I'll address why they can beat Boston. I mean, the Porzingis health is an X factor. Certainly, they would like to have him out there to have a couple options to throw at Joker, but in his last 7 against Porzingis, 30 points a game, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 62% shooting, 136 and a half offensive rating. Like, he's not stopping him more than Rudy Gobert, especially if he comes off a layoff here. And the Celtics are going to have like a bit of a shock factor here after, kind of coasting to the finals. Like, no matter what you say to like prepare, like, okay, this is going to be different. Like, you haven't been through the wars. Like, you just played 2 series that were absolute jokes. And I mean, maybe they'll get tested by the Knicks or Pacers. But I just don't think there's enough experience in these close games all season for the Celtics. Like, if they win, it's by 20. They're not going to be able to execute in crunch time, which we saw Denver beat them twice in clutch games, right? And then there's the coaching mismatch that like Joe Maz is just like not been out there in this situation, and he's young as hell, and I don't trust him to make adjustments throughout an NBA Finals to beat Mike Malone and this team. So I mean, that's where I was looking, but I'll throw out one more bet for this game 6, which is over in the third quarter, 49.5 points, which, the books are just not wise to this at this point. It's the same total for the third and the fourth quarter. And I mean, I guess it's that game 6 vibe, like things tighten up earlier than they would in usual. But like, I actually went through all the playoff series here in the second round. And I mean, every series is averaging between 8 and 10 more points per game in the third than the fourth, which makes sense. This series in particular, 58.5 in the third, 50 in the fourth. 4 or 5 have flown over here. The exception was 46 in that game 2 without Rudy Gobert, who, wasn't around for Jokic to abuse and whatever. That was just clearly the outlier game. And I will say Denver still got to 25 points in that game, which is their total here, 24.5. I think you can bet that as well as the overall team total, but I think the Wolves will be punching back in this one. But Denver's just like the best third quarter team in these playoffs, 131 offensive rating. Minnesota's third. 128 offensive rating, and both are scoring 30 a game. Denver actually scoring more on the road, and Minnesota's defense has been a little bit worse at home in those third quarters. Both teams have gone over in 7 of 9, counting their first round series, and that came despite the Nuggets shutting down the Lakers in the first 3 of that series. They held them to 20 points per game in the third quarters, and then they just carried it over by getting like 34 every time in their comeback mode here. I mean, Ant had a woeful first half. I talked about the Wolves in general, just 95 offense rating the last 3 first halves. He kind of figured out that defense a little bit in quarter 3 of this last one, right? I mean, he got to the free throw line 5 times, scored 9. Wolves got 30. Jokic, of course, had the best third quarter we've ever seen. So the Nuggets had 38. Just going way over this. I mean, 146 offensive rating in the last 3 for the Nuggets in the third quarter. So I think, both teams make the proper adjustments at halftime. That's why, that's the why for these third quarter things. Like, we know Jokic, when he has more information, he's a supercomputer. He's going to figure you out. With the Wolves, it's like, how are you guarding Ant? How can we get Ant going? And that is our offense, basically. Or how can we play off that and get some other guys going? And I think both offenses make the adjustments out of the half. And that's why you see a little bit of a boon in scoring.
Yeah, that adds up to me. I mean, you've been pretty hip to this stuff. I think the third quarter is usually a pretty bettable quarter ahead of time. It's usually not, I don't want to say predictable, but you can project things based on which team you like to make those adjustments. I fully agree with that. And yeah, for everything you said too. I mean, for Jokic, for MVP everywhere, for the Denver to win the champion, it's like, honestly, they're kind of like Bitcoin at this point. I just keep like going back and investing like, oh, wow, the market hasn't really dropped. All right, great. It hasn't really risen, rather, I should say. Like, I'll keep taking this if this price stays the same, and it's still like plus 225 for them to win a championship. That I just kept doing this last year too. I was like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Does anybody know I'm doing this? This feels wrong. How easy this is. Like, the Nuggets are that good. I don't trust the Celtics any more than I did last season. And I mean, I thought they were going to the chip last year. But and then as far as the third quarter stuff, yeah, I mean, points for this game, I do think they'll be a little bit like easier to come by, at least, or they'll be more likely. I do agree with that in the sense that, like, the Nuggets, I don't think they're going to fold necessarily. Now, the only thing that would scare me about the Nuggets is Jamal is legitimately unhealthy. Maybe he doesn't even go, but if he does go, is not able to kind of help them carry the offense along. And then now if you are that one dimensional, it's a little bit different because Jokic did have the one-on-one matchup with Rudy when he got down there. Obviously, when Cat was guarding him, it was a little bit different because he had Rudy playing off of that. But if that's the case, then like you can shut down that space a little bit better if you're not worried about other guys on the Nuggets. So that would just be one thing to consider with the totals. But as far as the game total, I do lean over as well. So I guess I certainly agree with the third quarter one. But I'm gonna get off of this game for 1 second because this price is still good, and I don't know what's going to happen by tomorrow. So we are looking at the Pacers and the Knicks for 1 second, because if the Knicks win in 7, you can get that for plus 150 right now, and I believe that was the best price that was found too. But if obviously shop stuff if when you're watching this, but for the Knicks to win in Indy, I don't see it. I just can't see it still, because you got incredible first of all, you got an incredible performance from Jalen Brunson. Nesmith was getting foul call after foul call. I probably overestimated Nesmith, but it's also like I underestimated Jalen. He did seem so much healthier in that game. Like there wasn't the need for him to pick up his dribble because he couldn't keep going. There was a lot of times where it was clear that foot was bothering him. He'd get into the top of the foul line and then just be like, oh shoot, and pick up his dribble and be like, man, I don't know if I can keep going around this dude. I can't get around this corner. I can't really get into the angles that I want. There's very few guys that small that don't need a direct angle to the basket to finish at the basket against bigger defenders. It's really impressive. But now he's able to do that. Still, the home road stuff, like I think, and we were talking about this, and you brought it up before last game as I was hedging my emotions by betting against the Knicks. You were like, look, man, MSG's different. And like these dudes are different. The dudes I'm talking about are the ones you see on the videos afterwards on social media on the sidewalk who are just on Hennessy and going crazy. Like those people in the stadium are different, and that place gets nasty. And it's been talked about by respectable people like Zach Lowe bringing up home court advantage, being like, I think we have to give 4 points home court advantage when you set a line against this Knicks team at home, because of the fact, like normally you get like a 3-point home court advantage in the playoffs, maybe can rise a little bit, but it's risen for the Knicks big time. Their numbers at home in this series specifically 3-0, 124 points per game. When they're on the road, 0-2, 97.5 points per game. There's some stuff that goes into that I'm still actually saying will contribute to this game as well. Like it's not just, they're on the road this series specifically, because they did fine in Philly. Indy's home court advantage is pretty rowdy, and this Indy team plays so much better at home, especially on defense, and that's a big part of it. But then even just taking out the home where they are, like the situations have been pretty brutal for the Knicks. They lose OG in Game 3 in the middle of playing in Indy in a game that they were in and like leading and could have gone up 3-0, as we all know. He goes out, boom. That makes sense. You go to Game 4. Well, that they just had to toss that game in the trash, and I think that was helpful to get Jalen Brunson off the court that quickly and not make him take more than the 18 shots he even took that game. I would have just not played him the second half, but whatever. He still sat a lot, and that helped them get healthy. So he is in a better place, but they're also still going to be without their most key role player, in my opinion, at this point. I mean, Hartenstein as well has just been way worse on the road. OG Anunoby was a dude who sort of seemed impervious to that and was still just sort of going at dudes in the mid-range and from 3 and all the way to the bucket. If they don't have that secondary option, then they're going to need to rely on guys like DDV to hit his shots on the road, which he did in Game 3, obviously not in Game 4 or Game 5. And then if you're talking about relying on Deuce and Alec Burks on the road, I don't want that noise either, to be honest with you. Those are dudes who are going to feed off of that, like I said, 4-point advantage you get from playing at home at the Garden. So for the Pacers at home, 5-0, and they've got 15 more points per game that they're scoring, giving up 13 more points per game, or about 11 points per game more when they're at home. I'm sorry, you get what I'm saying. They're better on the road or at home on defense, like by 11 points per game. 110 defensive rating when they play at home this playoffs, 125.3 defensive rating when they play on the road. And that held true in Milwaukee against a team that, like, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really think there was the reason that Milwaukee should have even been in that series that close after Dame got hurt. So that kind of tells me what I need to know about the Pacers. I do think they'll come out really strong here. And the Knicks and 7s plus 150 is great. I think another great way to look at this is like first quarter, first half for the Pacers, who have been dominating that other than this last game. It's not necessarily a hedge, but it's a little bit of a safeguard of like, all right, maybe they don't win this game, in which case this doesn't go to 7, but I think they win this first half enough that whatever happens in the second half, okay, maybe the Knicks do Jalen Brunson magic in the second half and fourth quarter, but in the first half, like, it's just going to be a barrage of pace and threes and attempted layups from this Pacers squad.
Yeah, and then we could see what we saw in Game 4, right, where the Knicks were like, all right, well, like live for another day. Like we can come back in 2 days and actually get Josh Hart some rest here. for Christ's sake. I mean, they do have 2 days off coming into this one. I think
Yeah.
there's more of a concern of the Knicks winning game 6 than there would be of the Pacers winning a game 7 in MSG because of what you talked about, right? So I think maybe if you hedge, it's
A
Knicks
money
to
line.
win.
Yeah.
Knicks to win 1 through 10, not the money line. Because I don't think the Pacers get blown out at home the way they did at MSG. Like if the Knicks win, it's because they just like win the possession battle, continue to crash the boards, and it's kind of like what we saw in that Philly series where they grind it out. I believe that game 6 they won by 3, right? And we were on the 1 through 10 win there, which is almost 3-1 on your money. Mm-hmm. So if you bet that and you bet this, then you're probably profiting no matter what, as long as it's not a blowout for the Knicks. Because this Pacers team too young, too green behind the ears. Their leader too passive to say they're going to go into this what is the best home court in the league right now and win a game 7. Like absolutely not. So get that money line ticket now if you think it is going 7.
Yeah, and the money line right now for the Knicks is plus 180. So it's still like it is a nice hedge on your plus 150 for the Knicks to win in 7. But that also said, like, can you get 1 to 10, or do you have to take 1 through 5 and 6 through 10 for the point margins?
I see 1 through 10 on FanDuel for plus 290. Yeah.
Okay. Because on DraftKings, they don't offer you a 1 through 10. You have to take 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, but like they're both end up being like plus 400, plus 500. So like, you can still take both of them and you're guaranteeing yourself like 3-1, if not 4-1 on your money either way. So that's some good ways to play it, but that's all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to subscribe to that page. We've also got player props up for this game 6 here for the Nuggets and the T-Wolves on Thursday night. So until we see you next, happy betting.